pooled investments is going to be a good area. I think the big institutional investors need to come together. I think it's in the product development. And this is, I think, where the CFA charter orders are critical. If we are going to develop products that will give us the ability to pool funds for big projects with an African focus, I think that would be critical. I think we've known, if you check in Southern Africa, rail is a big requirement, but it's isolated to small countries that have small balance sheets that can't do that. So if there can be a fund that looks at transport and logistics, maybe at a regional level, where all of these, like what Mohammed was saying, where the de-risking is very, very clear. I think DFIs can take a role where they are taking the first loss, and, pension funds by nature, because sometimes they are risk averse, can come in when the investments have been de-risked. So I'm thinking pooling is a critical issue. One of the things also, I think our advocacy now needs to shift to actual participation in policy development itself. We need to start participating. We need pension funds to have a bit more flexibility. We know it's the restrictions that they are sitting on that's stopping them from participating in certain things. But if those could be opened up to allow so that regulators, start revising certain guidelines, investment guidelines, which they have set out there. And I also think, internally, we could talk about these things, but one of the major barriers to practicalizing or implementing is capacity itself. So we need, places where capacity building is prioritized, where, I think this is where the society has now become critical. How can we run programs where we are partnering with certain member institutions or key institutions in building capacity within the institutions? Because the institutions could be sitting on these huge funds, but their own human capital does not have the capacity to be able to execute. So how do we build capacity in these institutions? I think it's a critical thing that we need to look at. And also, generally, slowly, I think our mindsets need to start shifting now from, this short-term kind of investment philosophies to long-term. I was looking at China. Consider China, when the premier comes in, he has a 20 to 30-year vision for the country. And the way we ourselves as investors, as charter holders, participate in this investing process, do we really have a long-term mindset? Are we designing our structures and, investment processes to allow us to consider, divesting out of government securities for the purposes of trying to create infrastructure that will create employment in a certain sector? And that kind of mindset change and having a long-term vision is a critical aspect that needs to be built into these institutional investors. And the institutional investors act through us as charter holders. We are the ones who sit on those desks. So at what point in time are we going to then, advocate for different kinds of thinking where we are going to be the source of the change that we are calling for? Because for the longest, we will remain, bystanders, and we will always be suggesting things when we meet together. But really, the action needs to take place when we are in the places where we are supposed to be making the influence. And this starts by us capacitating the charter holders as societies, give them capacity, allow them to then go and execute where they have the opportunities.